Hello again, Steve Fentress for the Strassenberg Planetarium at the Rochester Museum and Science Center. This week, a Scrapbook of Inspiration. It is a scrapbook assembled in a few hours in a troubled time. We have Galileo, Emerson, Frederick Douglass, a selection of scientists and astronauts. We have looked to the stars for centuries to try to learn our place in the universe. So far, we have found that our place is very small and lonely. What else are the sky and the vastness of space telling us? The year 1638. Galileo, Dialogue on the Two Chief World Systems. On one page of this book, philosophers are discussing on a hot afternoon whether the planets and the vast spaces between them have any purpose. One of the philosophers says, "It seems to me that we take too much upon ourselves when we will have it that merely taking care of us is the adequate work of divine wisdom and power. When the sun draws up some vapors here or warms a plant there, it draws these and warms this as if it had nothing else to do. Even in ripening a bunch of grapes, or perhaps just a single grape, it applies itself so effectively that it could not do more even if the goal of all its affairs were just the ripening of this one grape." 1836. Ralph Waldo Emerson, American essayist. "If a man would be alone, let him look at the stars. The rays that come from those heavenly worlds will separate between him and what he touches. One might think the atmosphere was made transparent with this design, to give man, in the heavenly bodies, the perpetual presence of the sublime. Seen in the streets of cities, how great they are! If the stars should appear one night in 1,000 years, how men would believe and adore, and preserve for many generations the remembrance of the city of God which had been shown. But every night come out these envoys of beauty and light the universe with their admonishing smile." What about stars in the mind of Frederick Douglass? From his autobiography, My Bondage and My Freedom, 1855. "Liberty, the inestimable birthright of every man, had, for me, converted every object into an assertor of this great right. It was heard in every sound and beheld in every object. It was ever present to torment me with a sense of my wretched condition. The more beautiful and charming were the smiles of nature, the more horrible and desolate was my condition. I saw nothing without seeing it, and I heard nothing without hearing it. I do not exaggerate when I say that it looked from every star, smiled in every calm, breathed in every wind, and moved in every storm." And later in the same book, contemplating escape with its great risks, Douglass writes, "Far away, back in the hazy distance, where all forms seemed but shadows, under the flickering light of the North Star, behind some craggy hill or snow-covered mountain, stood a doubtful freedom, half frozen, beckoning us to her icy domain." To the 1950s. Astronomer Edwin Hubble, the story goes, was showing a writer friend some photographs of galaxies unimaginably far away and rushing away at unimaginable speeds. "How terrifying!" the writer exclaimed. "Only at first," Hubble said, "when you are not used to them. Afterwards they give one comfort, for then you know that there is nothing to worry about, nothing at all." 1977. Physicist Steven Weinberg, at the ending of his book about the Big Bang called The First 3 Minutes. He contemplates the view from the window of an airplane. "Below, the earth looks very soft and comfortable. Fluffy clouds here and there, snow turning pink as the sun sets, roads stretching straight across the country from one town to another. It is very hard to realize that this is all just a tiny part of an overwhelmingly hostile universe. The more the universe seems comprehensible, the more it also seems pointless. But if there is no solace in the fruits of our research, there is at least some consolation in the research itself. Men and women are not content to comfort themselves with tales of gods and giants, or to confine their thoughts to the daily affairs of life. They also build telescopes and satellites and accelerators, and sit at their desks for endless hours working out the meaning of the data they gather. The effort to understand the universe is one of the very few things that lifts human life a little above the level of farce and gives it some of the grace of tragedy. Maybe you're not an astrophysicist or an astronaut or an engineer or technician working on spacecraft or telescopes. Maybe your important work is at home and the stars will come to you through your windows in the quiet hours of late night or early morning. There's a beautiful little book called The Friendly Stars, written in 1907 by Martha Evans Martin. She relates the bright stars as they return each year to events in the natural world. For example, here's what she says about Altair, the southern star in the summer triangle. By the middle of the first summer month, there is a lull in the noisy rush of the oncoming season. The dazzling blossoms of the fruit trees are scattered and almost forgotten. The old-fashioned annual roses are in their fullest glory. The blue jays have become stealthy and quiet, and most of the birds, while still in full song, have given over the frolicsome hilarity of the spring for the serious work of the nesting time. Then there comes a soft June evening with its lovely twilight that begins with the last song of the wood thrush and ends with the first strenuous admonitions of the whippoorwill. And almost as if it were an impulse of nature, one walks to the eastern end of the porch and looks for Altair. 1968, December 24th, Christmas Eve. Apollo 8 astronauts Borman, Lovell, and Anders were orbiting the moon. Something appeared in one window that prompted them to take one of the most important photographs of the century.
Oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow, is that pretty. Hey, don't take that, it's not scheduled. You got a color film, Jim? Hand me a roll of color, quick.
Oh man, that's great. Where is it?
Quick.
Down here?
Just grab me a color. A color exterior.
There you go.
Got one?
Yeah, I'm looking for one. C368.
Anything, quick.
Here.
Got it. I think we missed it.
Hey, I got it right here.
Let me get up this a lot clearer.
Bill, I got it framed. It's very clear right here. Got it?
Yep. Just take several.
Take several of them. Here, give it to me.
Wait a minute, let me just get the right setting here. Now, just calm down, Lovell.
Oh, I got it right. Oh, that's a beautiful shot. 250 at F11. Now there's exposure.
I did. I took two up there.
You sure you got it now?
Yeah, it'll come up again, I think.
2020, May 30th. Astronaut Leland Melvin tells a story while waiting for the SpaceX Crew Dragon launch.
Right. Chris Cassidy is up there floating in the Columbus laboratory that I installed, or our team of us installed on STS-122. And I think about, using this robotic arm that was made in Canada. The European Space Agency built the Columbus laboratory, and my job was to use that arm and attach it to the International Space Station. And as it was getting closer and closer, the motion just stopped. And I'm like, what is going on? And there are 4 ready-to-latch indicators that have a very slight spring force that I was moving so slowly with the hand controller, the translational hand controller, that spring force stalled out the motion. And there were 10,000 people waiting. Their job security depended on me installing this thing properly.
Right.
And Peggy said, Leland, push just a little bit harder on the hand controller. And all 4 ready to latch indicators went green. And I was like, yes! And that was our primary mission objective. But that paled in comparison to what happened next. Peggy invited us over to dinner in the Russian segment, and we had this meal with people from all over the world, Russian, German, French, African American, Asian American. This diversity that we talked about earlier, were up there breaking bread at 17,500 miles per hour while listening to Sade's Smooth Operator.
What?
It blew my mind. It was Smooth Operator, right?
What an appropriate song for this
I know.
job, too, right?
In 1990, the Voyager 1 spacecraft was already 9 years out beyond Saturn, leaving the solar system. At the urging of planetary scientist Carl Sagan, mission managers warmed up the cameras one last time and pointed them back at the solar system to take a family portrait. Mercury and Mars were hidden by sun glare and didn't show up. Pluto was too far away and too dark. But Earth was just visible, occupying less than 1 pixel. Anne Druyan is Carl Sagan's widow.
This was the pale blue dot. This was our willingness to see the Earth as a 1 pixel object in a far greater cosmos. It's that humility that science gives us, that weans us from our childhood need to be the center of things. And Voyager gave us that image of the Earth that is so heart-tugging, because you can't look at that image and not think of how fragile our world is, how much we have in common with everyone with whom we share it, our relationship, our relatedness to everyone on this tiny pixel.
Sagan and Druyan wrote, "Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam." Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.